Hi everyone, this is Alex from Lincoln Park Library, and today's How To Tuesday video is going to be button dish instructions. So this is actually for the adult and teen take-home craft for this week. This week's theme is button crafts. So one of them for the teen and adults is a button dish. So while there are instructions included within that kit out in the take-home boxes, I thought it would be even more helpful to also make a video of how I did it, kind of what I learned, little tips and things, and more in-depth pictures as well. So we're going to start with step one. There we go. So step one is going to be blowing up the balloon that's included in the kit. I did include two just in case one had popped. You never know with balloons. So I made mine relatively small just because I was making a smaller dish. I would suggest doing that as well, unless you want a wider dish, because the bigger that you blow up the balloon, the wider and less curved the bowl will be. That's totally up to you. Either way, you have to blow up the balloon and place it in something circular that will keep it steady on a table. So I put it in a roll of duct tape. You can do that as well. You can put it in a bowl, you can put it in Tupperware, anything that'll keep it kind of steady as you're working and placing the buttons on top of it. Included in step one is also covering the entirety of the balloon with Mod Podge, which is also included in the kit. So you're going to want to try and do, as even as you possibly can, it's kind of difficult, a layer of glue on that balloon. After that, you want it to let it dry completely. You want it to go from looking, kind of white, kind of streaky, to looking completely clear, which you can see on the picture on the right. When it's completely clear, that's how Mod Podge works. Especially, it's very shiny, this kind. You know that you're ready to move on to the next step. So it should look like picture 2 on the right, completely clear. That's when you know, okay, my first layer is done and I can move on to the second one. And then this layer is just the kind of like the protective layer, I guess, between the dish and the balloon for when you pop the balloon eventually. This layer keeps that bowl in place so that it doesn't, pop apart. So for step two, once that first layer of glue is completely dry, it's completely clear, that's when you can begin adding the buttons. So what you want to do is kind of look at the buttons that you have, maybe think about a pattern or, a size, if you want to do a size gradient, they're kind of just a bunch of random buttons. Figure out what you want to do, or if you just want to wing it, that's totally cool too. That's what I did. So what you want to do is you want to place a good amount of glue on the bottom of the button and attach it carefully. So this was a little tricky because if you add too much glue, it's possible that the buttons start sliding. So you got to find that balance between, too much glue or not enough glue. So, it takes a couple times, which is totally fine. Just play around with that and try and figure out how they're going to come together. Another tip that I learned, make sure that all the buttons are touching as much as possible. In a perfect dish, all the buttons are going to touch each other equally. So, at all sides, buttons are touching. Mine, that didn't happen. I say for the most part, they were all touching, which was fine. But just make sure, as much as possible, make sure that they're touching, because when you pop the balloon and you start to trim off the excess and get your bowl together, the more that the buttons are touching, the more sturdy the dish will be, which is what I found with mine. Okay, so once you put the glue on and you attach all the buttons, you're going to be covering them all with a layer of Mod Podge. So this is what my bowl had looked like on my balloon, and you can see that there's some gaps over here and over here. You can see that there's some gaps of where my buttons weren't touching each other. Later on, that meant that they were a little bendy. I added enough Mod Podge where it stayed together, but I think if I were to go back, I would make sure that I was a little bit more careful about having those buttons touch, because I think it definitely contributes to the integrity and the sturdiness of the dish. If they're all touching, it's just a little bit less breakable. But once you put all of these buttons on here, what you need to do is really cover it pretty well with, a layer of thick Mod Podge. So that's what I started to do here. And then once it's all covered, it should look like this. So, it's all white, you can't see anything. To me, it looked very weird, even knowing that Mod Podge dries clear. It looks a bit odd, and you're like, how is this gonna, look great later? But it does. This Mod Podge, it dries super clear and shiny, and it looks fantastic. So make sure that after you apply that layer of glue, that you put it back in the holder, whatever holder you're using, and let it dry completely. It needs to be completely clear. You can't see, like, you shouldn't be able to see any wet white glue, which is what I didn't do because there were a few spots, so I'll show you here. So step 4, once the glue is completely dry, that's when you're going to pop the balloon and you're going to peel it away from the bowl. So if you look at mine, I didn't notice when I did this, there's still some like wet glue spots. There are some white spots here, and that glue wasn't totally dry. So, and if you can see down here, you can see it a lot actually. So when I popped that, this was still super bendable, and it was very pliable, and it was a problem. So once I cut away all of this excess glue, which was dry because it had been that base glue on the balloon, I had to actually put this on something that was like balloon shaped. It was like an oval shape, and I had to put it on there for another day. So you may have to leave this out for a day or two for it to dry completely on that balloon. And that's, I think, the most crucial part is just leave it on the balloon for as long as it takes for all of this white glue to dry completely clear like this. Because that's what you need. You can see here that it's clear in some spots and then it's white in other spots. It needs to all be completely clear. But once that's done and you can pop it, you can also cut away or trim away all of this excess glue as well. And then you're finished. So you can see the difference here of how clear all of this glue is compared to, I'll go to the last slide. Here, where you can see this is all white. It was all wet glue. I should not have popped it. It's not a good idea. It ended up being fine because I had put it on something for, another day. But once it's done, it's all clear. It's all really shiny. This is the inside of it. And then here it is over here on the left. It's just, a small, cute little dish. It's perfect for rings or like necklaces or my chapstick, whatever you want to use it for. So that is the button dish. It's a very easy, straightforward craft. I think the one thing is that, it does take a little bit of time just for everything to dry, all the different layers of glue and stuff. But I think it's super fun to be able to put the buttons all together, make a pattern, and then you come out with this very cute, kind of fun, antique looking dish, which is super cool. So I hope you enjoy that. If you have any questions, as usual, you can always give me a call at the library, or if you want to come in and talk about it, I would be happy to talk about it with you. Thank you so much.